The rain was coming down in sheets the kind that turned roads into rivers and made even the most determined. Pedestrians reconsider their life choices. Not that I was out there suffering, no, I was inside, safe and warm. Staring at the questionable leftovers I had just rescued from the fridge, they smelled fine. Probably I gave them a cautious sniff, deciding I wasn't quite desperate enough to risk food poisoning tonight. The microwave hummed as I shut them inside, and I leaned against the counter, sighing. This was the peak of my Friday night, debating whether reheated takeout was worth potential gastrointestinal distress. Then the knock came, not a normal neighborly knock. It was urgent, erratic, 3 sharp raps, a pause, then 2 more, like someone trying to communicate in Morse code. Except I was pretty sure "let me in or I die" wasn't a standard message. I hesitated. It was late, I wasn't expecting anyone, and let's be honest, I wasn't exactly the kind of guy who got surprised visitors. For a moment, I entertained the idea of pretending I wasn't home, but something, call it curiosity, call it stupidity, dragged me toward the door. I cracked it open just enough to see outside. A woman stood there, drenched from head to toe, her long coat clinging to her frame. She looked human at first glance, tall, striking, with dark eyes that glinted even in the dim porch light. But then I saw her ears, long, pointed, sweeping back in an elegant curve that definitely wasn't standard human anatomy. Her breath came fast and shallow, and she kept glancing over her shoulder. "Let me in," she said, and it wasn't a request. I blinked, stared briefly, considered closing the door. You what?" She exhaled, her shoulders tense. "I need a place to hide just for a little while." A few very important thoughts competed for attention in my brain. One, a strange woman showing up at my door in the middle of the night was already weird. 2, a strange alien woman showing up at my door in the middle of the night was concerning. 3, there was absolutely no scenario where letting her in ended in anything normal. Unfortunately, my mouth was already operating independently of my good sense. "Are you in trouble?" She made a sound that was somewhere between a laugh and a grimace. That's an understatement. Lightning flashed, illuminating the yard, and I could have sworn I saw a shadow moving just beyond my fence that settled it. My life might have been quiet, but I wasn't so detached from reality that I ignored the part where ominous figures lurking outside usually meant bad things. I stepped aside. "Okay, but if you kill me, I'd like the courtesy of a dramatic last word." She didn't smile, but something in her expression softened. "Deal." She stepped inside, dripping water onto my floor, and I shut the door behind her, locking it for good measure. Now what? She took off her coat, revealing a dark, form-fitting suit underneath, the kind that looked both incredibly advanced and incredibly impractical for casual wear. A faint shimmer ran along the material when she moved, and for some reason my brain supplied the thought that is definitely not from any Earth department store. She caught me staring and raised an eyebrow. "You've never seen a woman before?" "Oh, plenty." I cleared my throat. "Just not ones with accessories like yours." I gestured vaguely toward her ears. She sighed and ran a hand through her wet hair. "Look, I appreciate the hospitality, but we don't have much time." That was not a reassuring sentence. I crossed my arms. "Okay, then let's start with the basics. Who are you?" She hesitated. "Ian Wright." "And who exactly is chasing you?" The pause was longer this time. "That's complicated." "Complicated how?" Lion let out a slow breath. "Ever heard of political marriages?" He sure well I was supposed to be in one. I disagreed. I frowned, and instead of just saying no thanks and going on your way, I tried. That she cut in. "Turns out when your father is an ambassador and the groom-to-be as the son of a warlord, no thanks isn't an acceptable answer." I stared at her. "So you're telling me you ran away from an interstellar warrior clan, and now they're looking for you?" Lurin shrugged. "Pretty much." I rubbed my temples. "And you pick my house to hide in because randomness, unpredictability. Also, your neighborhood doesn't have security drones." "Oh, great." "So my lack of advanced security measures made me the perfect hideout for a fugitive alien bride." "Fantastic." Something thumped outside. Lion's posture snapped upright, her hand going to the strange-looking device strapped to her thigh. Didn't know much about alien technology, but I could take a solid guess that it was a weapon. She turned to me, voice low. Do you have a back exit? I swallowed. Technically, yes, but if we could not wreck my house while escaping, I'd appreciate it. The next knock at the door wasn't frantic like Lion had been. It was deliberate, measured. Lion, a voice called from the other side, male, calm, too calm. We know you're in there. I looked at her. She looked at me. I whispered, I really don't want to die tonight. She whispered back, then don't answer the door. Well, that was a start. The knocking didn't stop. It wasn't violent or aggressive, but it was steady, like the guy outside had all the time in the world. That was almost worse. It meant whoever was looking for Lion wasn't in a rush, because they already thought they'd won. Lion had gone completely still, her body tense, her long ears twitching slightly as she listened. I wasn't sure if they were more sensitive than human ears, but from the way she was holding herself, I guess she could hear more than I could. She turned her head just slightly toward me, her voice barely a whisper. Do you have weapons? I almost laughed. Lady, I own a frying pan, a can of bug spray, and a baseball bat, none of which seem useful in an intergalactic manhunt. She made a face like she was reconsidering her life choices. Great, just great. Another knock. Lion, the voice came again, calm and patient. You know why we're here. You know how this ends. I had no idea how this ended, but I was increasingly worried it involved me in some unpleasant way. I gestured toward the back of the house. There's a door that leads to the alley. She gave a small nod and started moving. I followed her because I was absolutely not sticking around to meet whatever was on the other side of my front door. We crept through the house, past my perfectly normal, perfectly boring kitchen and toward the back exit. Then something clicked, not in my head, in reality. Lion stopped just as I did was that I started. She cut me off. They've locked us, and I stared at her. How she gestured vaguely. Advanced technology signal, disruptors. It's not that hard to jam primitive locks. I took offense to that. Excuse me, I paid good money for that lock. Did it come with laser resistance? No, then it's not a very good lock. A faint hum filled the air, and the windows flickered just for a second, but enough for me to realize what had happened. They put up a containment field. Lion cursed under her breath something in a language I didn't recognize, but felt vaguely insulted by anyway. She was already moving, packing, looking for another exit. I, on the other hand, was still trying to process the fact that my house had been sealed like a high-security space prison. I threw up my hands. What exactly is the plan here? Because I feel like I was not consulted on the hostile alien takeover of my property situation. Lauren didn't answer. Immediately, her eyes darted around, scanning the room, and then she did something that made my stomach drop. She reached up and tapped a small device hidden behind her ear. I watched as a translucent blue interface flickered to life in front of her eyes, like futuristic augmented reality glasses. She swiped through it with quick practice movements, her fingers flickering through different screens. I couldn't see what exactly are you doing? I asked, because when someone starts messing with invisible alien technology inside your house, you kind of want to know. Why checking their frequency? She muttered, if I can disrupt the field, we can make a run for it. That sounded good, that sounded hopeful. And if you can't disrupt the field? She hesitated. I sighed. That's not encouraging. Hey, she said, not looking up from whatever sci-fi magic she was working on. You're the one who let me in. This is partially your fault. I pointed at myself. Oh, my fault. Was I the one who ran away from a marriage that could start an interstellar war? She shot me a flat look. Would you marry the son of a warmongering lunatic? Okay, fair. The knocking at the front door finally stopped, and I let out a slow breath of relief. Maybe they'd given up. Maybe they decided I wasn't worth the trouble. Maybe a deep mechanical whir filled the air like something charging up. Lion went rigid. Move. I didn't question it. I threw myself to the ground just as something exploded. The door, my poor, innocent, perfectly normal door, was obliterated in a shower of sparks and metal. I groaned from my position on the floor. You're paying for that. Lion crouched beside me, eyes locked On the smoke-filed entryway, sure I'll leave you a check before we die, eh? Silhouette appeared in the wreckage of my door frame. A man stepped through tall and broad-shouldered clad in sleek black. Armor that seemed to shimmer in the dim light, his face was uncovered, and to my surprise, he looked well mostly human. Dark eyes, short, cropped hair, a face that might have been handsome if it weren't said in the distinct expression of someone very tired of chasing runaway brides. Lion, he greeted Relan, she replied. Deadpan, oh great, they knew each other. That was never a good sign you've called. Quite the mess, Rand said, stepping further inside. Lion snorted, that's the general. Idea, his eyes flicked to me, and I suddenly felt very aware of the fact that I was just a regular guy in sweatpants sitting on the floor of his wrecked house, while two aliens exchanged dramatic dialogue above me. You involved. A human, Rillan observed. I borrowed a human, Lurin corrected. Hey, I cut in, I am not an accessory, and whatever space drama you two have going on really ignored me. Your father's offering a very generous deal. Surrender now, and we can avoid making this worse. Lion rolled her eyes. Oh wow, what a tempting offer. Be a political pawn for the rest of my life, or checks notes. Not do that really. Inside, like a man who had dealt with this conversation one too many times. Lion, you know this won't end well. She tilted her head. For me, or for you? I did not like the way she said that. Rand's gaze hardened. I didn't want to do this the hard way then, with alarming speed. Lion moved 1 second. She was beside me. The next, she was on Relan, twisting around him in a flurry of motion. I had no idea what was happening, but suddenly Ran was on the ground. Lurin was grabbing my wrist, and we were running. Wait, what? Where are we going? I wheezed as we sprinted through the house. Anywhere but here, she said, tapping at her device again. Hold on. I opened my mouth to demand why, but then the world blinked. A rush of cold air, a disorienting lurch. And suddenly we weren't in my house anymore. The first thing I noticed was the cold. The second thing I noticed was the fact that I wasn't standing on solid ground anymore. Instead, I was knee in something thick and wet, and for a brief, horrifying moment, I thought Lan had just teleported us into the middle of the ocean. My panicked, flailing Dissel, a clump of something slimy, and I realized with great displeasure that it wasn't water. It was mud, deep freezing suction, your shoes off mud. I looked around, blinking rapidly as my vision adjusted. We were in a forest. Sort of the trees were too tall, too thin, their bark a strange metallic blue that shimmered under the dim light of what I assumed was a moon, except it was the wrong color. It cast a faint purple glow over everything, like the world had been permanently dipped in twilight. I took a slow breath, trying very hard to maintain my composure, and then turned to Lion. I have some questions. She barely spared me a glance, tapping furiously at the device behind her ear. Make them quick. Okay, first, where are we? She frowned at her. Anasa, remote planet name doesn't translate well, but let's call it not where we just were. I looked around again. Uha, and you just happen to have the coordinates for not where we just were. Ready to go. Lion gave me a pointed look. I plan ahead. I cross my arms. Oh, sure. Because nothing about tonight screams meticulous planning. She ignored that, which was rude because I felt like I had a very valid complaint. A distant sound rumbled through the trees, low and guttural, like something very large and very hungry had just noticed us. I tense. A lion. She didn't look up. Yeah, is this a safe planet? The pause was not reassuring. Lana, it's less unsafe than where we were. Wow, love, that very comforting. She finally turned to me, looking mildly exasperated. Look, we didn't have a lot of options, okay? Ran had us locked down. If I hadn't jumped coordinates fast enough, we'd be in cuffs right now. I threw up my hands. I wouldn't be in cuffs. You would be in cuffs. I would just be a very unfortunate bystander. Another distant sound echoed through the forest, closer this time. It was followed by a faint rustling, like something moving through the undergrowth. Lurin immediately snapped to attention, her body tense. We need to move right away from the ominous noises. Fantastic idea. I tried to step forward, but the mud had other plans. My foot was thoroughly stuck, and when I yanked it free, it did so with a sound that could only be described as an embarrassing schlorp, Lauren pinched the bridge of her nose. Do you need help? No, I said with as much dignity as I could muster while flailing. I am an independent man, capable of walking through alien terrain. Lauren raised an eyebrow but said nothing. She just started moving her boots, making barely a sound, as she navigated the terrain like it was second nature. I meanwhile was making enough noise to alert every creature in a 5 m radius. We walked, or in my case, stumbled for several minutes, the forest growing denser around us. The air smelled different here, not unpleasant, just unfamiliar, like rain-soaked metal, and something faintly floral. The purple glow from the sky filtered through the trees, casting strange, shifting shadows. Eventually, we reached drier ground, and I collapsed against a tree with a dramatic groan. Okay, can we take a second to appreciate the fact that my night started with leftover takeout, and is now this? Lion glanced at me, not handling the adventure well. I think I'm handling it fantastically, considering I was just kidnapped via teleportation. Lion snorted. I didn't kidnap you, you just came along. Oh, let's pretend I had any say in the matter. She smirked, but didn't argue. I exhaled, rubbing my temples. Okay, South. What's the plan? She hesitated. Oh, that was not a good sign. You do have a plan, right? I pressed. Lion tapped at her interface again. Well, my ship was supposed to be nearby. I sat up straighter. Supposed to be, she grimaced, extracting the small blinking tracker embedded inside. The moment she pri it free, the ship gave a soft jolt. I flailed. Why did the ship jolt? Lion was already on her feet. Because they know we found it, and now they're speeding up. I ran after her as she sprinted back to the cockpit, where the blinking red warning light on the screen was flashing even brighter than before. I swallowed hard. Tell me we have an escape plan. Lion tapped furiously at the controls. We do? Is it a good plan? She hesitated. I threw my hands up. Oh, come on, they won't expect us to turn around, she said suddenly, a mischievous gleam in her eyes. I froze. I'm sorry. But instead of answering, she yanked the controls hard. The ship spun. I screamed, not even a dignified scream, a full-in cartoon character. I am about to die scream. The ship looped in a dizzying arc, reversing course at a breakneck speed. I clutched the seat, heart hammering. This is a terrible plan. Elle was grinning. It's a brilliant plan. I squeezed my eyes shut. Please tell me you at least know where we're going. Oh, absolutely. I cracked one eye open. You hesitated again. Lauren just smirked, flicking a switch. Hold on. The ship shot forward, the stars around us blurring into streaks of light. As we entered another jump, I collapsed into the seat, head spinning. Lion glanced at me, clearly enjoying my misery. Still wish for boring, I groaned, covering my face with my hands so much. She just laughed, the sound light and unbothered, as if she hadn't just yeet us into hyperspace with no clear destination. I had a terrible sinking feeling that this was only the beginning. The ship jolted again, because of course it did. At this point I was the first time Liam met his new neighbor. He was balancing 3 bags of groceries, a malfunctioning key card, and a coffee cup that was absolutely going to spill. It wasn't the most dignified introduction, but in his defense, he hadn't expected to meet anyone interesting, let alone someone from another planet. The elevator doors slid open with a faint hum, revealing her. For a moment, Liam forgot how to breathe. She stood with a posture that suggested she had never once tripped over a loose shoe place or panicked. While reheating leftovers, her skin had a faint pearlescent sheen in the artificial light, and her dark hair fell in a sleek curtain past her shoulders. She looked human mostly, but her ears were long and sharply pointed, curving slightly back in a way that suggested either superior hearing or excellent aerodynamic design. She glanced at his precarious balancing act and arched a delicate eyebrow. Without a word, she reached forward and plucked one of the grocery bags from his arm. Her fingers were cool against his skin, for someone who had nearly sprained his wrist juggling groceries. Liam figured he should probably say something charming. What came out instead was, well, if you keep being this helpful, I might think you're proposing marriage. The words hung there loud and awkward while his brain belatedly screamed at him to stop talking smooth. Liam real smooth. Her gaze flicked toward him, cool, "An unreadable noted," she said simply then. Turned and walked toward their shared hallway, her footsteps soundless against the polished floor Liam stood in. The elevator, wondering if it was too soon to move to another building. He didn't think much about the incident until later that evening, when a sleek silver object slid under his apartment door. He picked it up, turning it over in his hands, a smooth metal disc etched with faint curling symbols. It looked vaguely official, maybe. A building notice, a parking violation. Did he leave his laundry in the communal dryer again? Then, like any reasonable person faced with an alien artifact, Liam Googled it. The search results hit him like a freight train. According to the Galactic Integration Database, the object was a Zell initiation token typically given in response to a formal request. For courtship, the accompanying text read in cheerful bureaucratic font, "By accepting this token, the recipient acknowledges mutual interest and initiates the first phase of the Zari bonding process. This process is legally binding in most interstellar territories. Congratulations." Liam nearly dropped the disc number. No. He paced his living room, heart pounding. It had to be a mistake, a prank, maybe interstellar spam mail, except the token didn't look fake. And the Zell weren't exactly known for their sense of humor. His mind flashed back to the elevator, his stupid joke, her unreadable expression. Oh hell, his doorbell chimed softly. Liam froze. Through the security monitor, he saw her standing there, his neighbor, the token giver. She held a small box in her hands, probably containing more alien paperwork to complete his accidental marriage. Liam briefly considered climbing out the window, but remembered he was on the 34th floor. With a sigh of defeat, he opened the door. Hey, he said, aiming for casual and landing somewhere closer to sweating intern on his first day. She tilted her head slightly, her long ears twitching. "I noticed your lights were on," she said, her voice smooth with an accent he couldn't quite place. "You accepted the token, that is surprising about that." Liam started holding up his hands, as if he could physically ward off any binding contracts. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. The thing I said in the elevator, it was a joke. Humans joke a lot, especially when we're flustered and carrying too many groceries." Her gaze swept over him like a scanner. "A joke," she repeated slowly. "Yeah, I wasn't, proposing." His laugh came out shaky. "I barely know you. Not that you're not great. I mean, you seem great, but I'm not really looking to get married." By elevator banter for a long moment. She said nothing then to his absolute horror. Her lips curved into a faint smile. "I see," she said. "Humans joke about serious commitments." Interesting. Liam relaxed slightly. Maybe she understood. Maybe this wasn't going to turn into an interspecies diplomatic incident after all. And yet she added, lifting the small box in her hands, "I prepared a gift in response. Our customs require it." She opened the box, revealing an intricate glass-like pendant glowing soft with pale blue light. "This symbolizes my acknowledgement. To refuse it now would be unkind." His heart sank. Right, of course. He was 90% sure refusing the gift wouldn't trigger some interstellar death clause, but that other 10% gnawed at him, and honestly, her expression, cool as it was held, the faintest trace of anticipation. For someone who had called his bluff, she didn't seem in a hurry to back down. Liam cleared his throat. "I guess one little gift wouldn't hurt. Thank you, neighbor Verrill," she supplied smoothly. "My name is Verrill." Liam, he accepted the pendant, trying to smile, while internally screaming, "Nice to meet you again." Her gaze lingered a moment longer, then she turned and left the door, sliding shut behind her. Liam stood there, pendant glowing softly in his hand, wondering how his day had gone from buying Cyril to accidentally engaged to an alien woman in under 24 hours. As he collapsed onto his couch, his phone buzzed. A message from his friend Eric. "How's the new place?" Liam groaned and typed back, "Well, I might be married now." The next morning, Liam woke up to the soft glow of the Zari pendant sitting on his nightstand, an unwelcome reminder that somehow he'd managed to entangle himself in an alien courtship ritual. He stared at it like it might explode. Honestly, considering his luck, it probably would. He sat up, running a hand through his hair and tried to convince himself that things weren't that bad. After all, it wasn't like she'd moved in or sent out interstellar wedding invitations, maybe, if he handled this. Carefully, like a reasonable adult, he could smooth things over and return to his peaceful, unengaged existence, his. Phone buzzed another message from Eric. So how's married life do you two share? A Netflix account, yet Liam groaned and tossed his phone onto the bed he needed. Coffee and a plan definitely in that order, as he shuffled to the kitchen, the